Hey there, it's Kristine from Nurse in the Making. Today I'm going to talk to you about my top 5 tips for studying in nursing school. I wish that there was one study plan that worked for every single person, but everyone's different in the way that they learn, the way that they study, and the way that they retain things. Students come to me all the time and say, I failed an exam, but I studied so much for it. And if you studied one way and failed the test, don't expect to study the same way for the next test and ace it. You have to find what works for you, how you study the best, and this takes time. Today, I'm gonna go over some study methods that will hopefully help you. So let's dive in. My first study tip is have a plan. Most of you probably have a monthly planner like this one to track your assignments, due dates, and test dates, which is really important for keeping track of the million things that you have to do in nursing school. But do you have an hourly breakdown of what needs to get done today, like in this hour? Because that's super important also. Basically, you want to schedule one subject or topic for each hour of the day. This keeps you looking at only one thing, the thing you need to memorize or understand in that moment. When you have an actual realistic plan for how you'll get through all the content, things get a lot less overwhelming. Even if you aren't able to stick to the plan perfectly, that's okay. Planning is way better than being overrun by anxiety, thinking about all the things you have to memorize and not having a plan. That's why I made the hourly study schedule notepad. This comes with the complete laminated study templates, but I'm going to talk about those later in this video. Tip number 2 is to synthesize your notes. You have information coming from your textbook, your PowerPoints, what your teacher says, your lecture notes, and any other resources that your teacher decides to throw at you last minute. So having your notes in one organized place is essential. If you don't do this, you'll probably feel overwhelmed and unorganized. This is why tip number 2 is to synthesize your notes. Basically means compiling them into one organized document. So let's talk about what that looks like. For me, after each class, I would take my lecture notes and the PowerPoint notes and copy them into one organized document. I personally love Google Docs because it saves it as you typed. I've learned the hard way by using Microsoft Word and losing multiple essays, so I would save yourself some time and frustration and use Google Docs. I would then print out those notes and put them in a class binder so that I can review it before the test. I personally like to step away from the notebook and the computer screen and have a hard copy binder. I only studied what was on that paper. I would highlight, I would add notes. It's almost like during the exam, I would visualize things on that paper. I knew exactly where it was. I could tell you what page it was and what it looked like and what color it was highlighted in. Which brings me to tip number 3, repetition. Nursing school is like learning a brand new language, and you don't learn a new language overnight. I'm not fortunate enough to have photogenic memory, so I had to see things multiple times for my brain to truly understand and memorize it. This is why one of the most powerful tools you can do as a nursing student is to test your knowledge with the power of repetition. And I don't mean repetition in terms of reading the same paragraph in your textbook over and over and over again. I mean testing yourself without looking at your notes, writing it down, saying it out loud, and doing that over and over again. That's why I created the complete laminated study templates, so you can practice over and over again without wasting a ton of paper and ink. It includes a ton of very common and important subjects and topics you will learn in nursing school. You can use it to test your knowledge on certain diseases and med-surg, different medications. There are ABG templates that walk you through how to answer ABG questions, and a lot more helpful templates, worksheets, and quizzes. You can find the link to the complete laminated templates in the description below. Tip number 4 is mix it up. I found for me personally that a variety of different study methods helped me remember the information because I wasn't bored during my study times. You can mix up your studying by using the templates I just showed you, flashcards, studying in groups, maybe doing NCLEX style questions for whatever topic you're going over right now, saying things out loud to a friend or your dog, and using other guides such as the Complete Nursing School Bundle. For those who have been following me for a long time know this is the book I created for nursing students while I was in nursing school. It's packed with over 200 pages of nursing notes, mnemonics, memory tricks, and it breaks down those hard topics that are really confusing in your textbook into easy to understand language. On the topic of breaking things down into easy to understand language and bringing it back to the basics, this is a huge study tip. You always want to circle back to the main idea. So many times I would find myself focusing on the small little details in the textbook. I would get caught up in something my teacher said and tunnel vision on it. The last semester in nursing school, I got really good at taking a step back when I felt frustrated and overwhelmed with all that I had to know. And I would just focus on the main thing that's going on, the big picture. For example, maybe I was learning about hypovolemic shock, and I would focus on all the small details about it written in my textbook. But I would take a step back and say, well, what is hypovolemic shock? Well, hypovolemic shock is when there isn't enough blood in the body to perfuse the vital organs. So let's talk about the vital signs, right? That causes a low blood pressure and a high heart rate because the heart is trying to pump more blood, because that's our issue here. We don't have enough blood in the system. So the heart rate is compensating. Basically, I would walk myself through a scenario like that. Rather than being focused on the small little details of the textbook, you need to take a step back and think, what's the main issue going on? So again, big study tip, you always want to circle back to the main idea. Anyway, the point is, it's important to switch up your studying. Take a step back to the big picture. Otherwise, you end up studying without retaining anything, and you're just going through the motions of studying. Tip number 5 is take breaks. It may sound strange, but stepping back and taking short breaks can help you focus better during the time you're actually studying. Going for a run, walking your dog, baking something, going for a bike ride, FaceTiming a friend, anything to take a mental break. Like I said above, it's easy to get caught up in going through the motions and studying, and hours later, you realized I didn't retain anything I just went over because you were sitting in the same spot, studying the same thing, looking at the same textbook for hours. So it's so crucial that you take those little study breaks. Whether it's a quick 5-minute break, 15-minute break, or 30-minute break, those breaks are crucial. There's a lot to remember in nursing school, so every minute counts. So often when students fail an exam, they think, I need to study more. I mean, that's what I thought my first semester. I was so frustrated. I failed my first fundamentals exam, and I thought, I just need to study more. And sometimes, yes, you may have not studied enough and you know who you are, but those of you who actually did study like a lot and still failed, don't think you need to study harder. You just need to study smarter. But seriously, be intentional and do all the things I just told you. The problem may be that you're just drowning in your textbook for hours and not being efficient. You want to study successfully and actually retain the information you're going over. I hope these study tips helped, and you can find all the products I talked about in this video in the description below. Happy studying, future nurses!